So here we've got our 2011 Yukon hybrid. Wife took it to work last week and managed to lose assist while backing out of the parking spot when she went to leave work. So had to pull it back into the parking spot. I drove it home in manual assist, never recovered. And when I got home, these were the two codes that I read on the power steering control module. I'll walk you through how we diagnose this. So ignition is off here, and just have the steering column unlocked so we can hear what sort of noises this system made. Back driving it through the road wheel here, you can hear the standard ball nut bearing noise, but there's also a pretty intense squeak that comes along when you increase the speed. With the truck on, wanted to hear what the motor sounded like underneath there, and articulating this again with the wheels off the ground through the steering wheel. There's a pretty loud zipper noise, and also that squeak that was there in the beginning. Took the motor off, and the motor shaft was sheared off, and basically it just indicated a broken motor shaft. I know others have seen that online as well. So what I did is I ordered full gear on eBay, found a gear that looked like it had been a new stock for a while, and plan to take the motor off of this gear and install it onto my truck without having to take the gear off that's on there and redo the alignment and everything else. Also found a way that we could diagnose the motor shaft without even removing the motor from the vehicle. So in this video here, I'll explain a little bit more about how you could diagnose that without removing the gear from the vehicle. If you get the motor connection unhooked from the power steering control module, and that's up underneath the hybrid module, it's the 300 volt, underneath the 300 volts. So you gotta be very, very careful. The best option is just to disable the 300 volts before you get at this. But this plugs into the power steering control module up there. And this is a 42 volt system, and it's a 3-phase motor. So you've got AC voltage and current going to the motor to provide assist through the entire gear, basically based off of this torque sensor input here. But what occurred to me in the vehicle was that if you have the broken motor shaft, you should see no voltage coming back through any of these phase leads here. You measure across these phase leads. So in the vehicle, did some ohm checks, checked for resistance in this guy, pretty low resistance. But then I had the key on, vehicle obviously unpowered, the battery's unplugged, and I back drove the system through the road wheels. So back driving, it means you push on the tie rod and you drive the gear back and forth. I put my probes across these terminals here, 2 terminals, and I saw 0 voltage in the vehicle. So that means there's 0 regen current or regen voltage, just like a generator, that motor is when you back drive it. There was 0 regen voltage coming back on the system. So with this new gear, I wanted to prove out a theory. You can check whether or not that motor shaft is broken without even pulling the motor off of the gear while it's in the vehicle. Save you some time on ordering parts, etc. Because it took me a good, probably a good 4 hours to get that motor off of there in my vehicle in a northern state, so we've got some corrosion. But anyways, I'll show you what I'm talking about here. I'll probe through this connector, and we'll look at the voltage as we move the gear back and forth by hand. So you go across the phase leads here, any of them are fine. You get voltage across the phase leads coming out of the power steering control module to drive the motor in the vehicle. But basically got those 2 connected there, and I'm going to attempt to hold my phone here as I articulate the gear back and forth. So as you can see there, on the AC setting for 200 volts, you had some voltage show up on the meter as it was going back and forth. So that means that that motor shaft on a brand new gear is adequately connected to the mechanical system. So again, even though the manual says that you need to replace your power steering control module as one of the first steps, when you run into a sensor fault. And I guess it's worth noting, the diagnosis, the DTCs in the vehicle said that I had a motor position sensor fault or a steering position sensor fault. That's this sensor right up on top of here. The sensor is down inside here. And it also had a voltage fault on the power steering control module. Sometimes they say is indicated by overcurrent or some voltage issue with the power steering module. So again, rather than pulling the motor off, if you disconnect this and you check the phase voltage across here, and you've got voltage coming out of there, when you articulate it back and forth, power off, that means your motor shaft is not broken. If you have 0 volts coming out of here when you articulate it, means that motor is not connected to the assist gearbox here. Hopefully that helps anybody else that runs into this same issue. So I pulled the new motor off the new gear, installed the motor, and let's listen to the noise with the key on, engine on. So what you hear there is a standard EPS noise, basically just the ball nut noise providing assist. And took it for a test drive, and life is good. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and I will document more about the DIY fixes I do on this Yukon. It's got 130,000 miles on it, so there's plenty of opportunity to do other fixes as we go along here. Thanks for watching.